Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we're going to dive back into our Complete Black series by T.L. Smith. If you have not already listened to Book 1's review, which is called Black, that link is going to be available down below in the description section. Once you're finished there, you can come and join us as we dive into Book 2, which is called Red. So Black now goes by, I think it's Trace. I think in the last review I said Tracy, but I think it's Trace because it's spelled Trace. So we'll just say it's Trace. So it's been 5 years. He doesn't believe the people that are portraying to be his brothers. So he notices the looks that they give each other every time he asks a question, and he feels this is not where he belongs. So the only time he feels normal is when he's by himself. And he basically has gotten to a point where he's like, okay, I got to get to the bottom of what's really going on around here. So Rose herself, she says she's okay, but she's really not. She definitely feels broken and like she just can't be put back together again. Poor girl. Trace is still doing assassinations. He's still a hitman. And he's in the middle of pouring gasoline down a man's throat who apparently messed with the wrong man's daughter. She was like 18, 19, but I think he was a lot older. So he holds up a picture of her, and the man says, I never touched her, and Trace knows right away the guy's lying. So then he crushes the man's bones in his hand with a hammer, and then he puts one in the guy's head, and then tells whoever's on the phone it's done. So when he comes back home, he screws Savannah, who's his girlfriend, but he doesn't feel anything for her. So she says she loves him, but he never says it back. Now, 5 years, if I've been telling you I love you and you never say it back, we got a problem. That's weird. So they go downstairs to the clubhouse. They live above it and hang out with the crew. So we find out he's a part of a motorcycle gang. I think they're called the Vicious Vipers. And he doesn't feel like he should belong. But according to what everyone else has told him, he's a part of the club. So the only thing that kind of feels right is when he puts his hand on the gun. And so he, of course, has made the club like a ton of money doing these assassinations. And so his apparent close friend is a guy named Kane. And the Savannah girl, his girlfriend, she's this president's, they call him Prez. But this guy's name is Grover. In the last book, that was another biker club, and that guy's name was Gary. He took him out. But was it Gary? It might have been something. It was with the G. I can't remember. But this guy's name is Grover. But I'm going to just say Prez because it's just easier. So Savannah is his daughter. He sneaks off. He goes back upstairs, tries to go to sleep, and he wants to see the face that matches the voice in his dreams. And the voice tells him to find me, but all he sees is black. So one night he has like a really bad dream. He wakes up, he's all out of sorts, and Savannah keeps asking, like, what did you dream? And he says to her, who was I before? And she stalls, but then she says, you fucked a junkie. So he says, that's it? And then she says, yeah, but it doesn't matter. And stop trying to remember when you are where you belong. It's been 5 years already. So she goes with him on an assignment. She annoyed her way into going. She's super annoying. They went to a small town and Savannah keeps looking around. She's really nervous. So they get out of the truck and a hand lands on Trace's shoulder and it's Sax. So he calls him Black and says, it can't be you. You're supposed to be dead. And then he stops talking. So then Savannah tries to wrap herself around Trace. She's super rude to Sax. And so when they part and shake hands, Sax had kind of snuck a card in his hand and Trace quickly put it in his pocket without her seeing it. So they wait on the target. They follow the guy. And when he comes from what looks like a night of passion, he takes him out in the car from far away because, he does the whole sniper thing. When they get back to the clubhouse, he's approached by Grover and he says, did you talk to someone? And so Trace was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So he says, you wouldn't lie to me now, would you? And Trace is just like, whatever. So, well, right after Grover leaves, Savannah barges in and says, I had to tell him, baby. So he tells her, leave and go fuck somebody else. How rude. But I'm just saying, if someone says that to you, like, the fact that she's still like clinging to him, still trying to be with him, and this dude literally just said to you, go fuck somebody else. That is a sheer sign. He don't care nothing about you. Like, let it go. So she freaks out because she's, feels like she's losing him. So she's freaking out. She keeps saying, I love you. Don't do this. And he tells her, didn't I tell you to leave? Just no feeling. So he packs a bag and he leaves to go meet up with Sax. And I think he had to drive a couple hours. So he gets to a hotel and talks with Sax, but he doesn't get any real information. Sax just tells him, get a tux and meet him at this charity event for a charity called Red. So he looks it up, sees it's for women who are trying to like get clean. And of course that just makes him even more confused. But he goes and gets a tux and he's going to go to the gala tonight. I forgot to mention the phone call. There was a threat from Grover when he had gotten to the hotel. Grover had called him and was like, basically, I'll give you a week. If you don't come back, I'm sending men for you. So Rose and Jake, they get ready for the event. He says flirty stuff, but they're just best friends. I don't buy it. I think Jake probably is in love with Rose, but she is so attached to Black that he knows he probably will never have a shot. But I think he probably is falling for that woman. So they go to the event and she goes to the stage and he hears her voice, aka Trace, and he just stares at her because it's the voice that matches the voice in his dreams. And then he notices that she's staring at another man at the front table. And so Trace asks Sax, who's that? And he says, I'm thinking it's your competition soon. So then Rose spots Trace and she just runs off the stage. And she goes out the door. So Trace goes to her, but all she can say is like, it can't be, it can't be. Then he asks her, who is she? And of course that pains her because she was like, you don't know who I am? And she's got tears running down her face. And when he goes to wipe, she just kind of pulls back because I think it's crazy enough to see him. But bitch, if you touch me, I might just lose it even more so. So she goes back inside. Sax comes up to him and says, do you know who that is? And all he can say is important. Like, he knows it's someone important. He just can't put together who it is. And then Sax is like, well, at least you know that. So Rose talks with Jakes, but barely. And she's like having like a full blown like freak out, So she tells Jake she saw Black and he's like, are you sure? She's like, I am. So Sax walks up, confirms that it was Black. Jake runs out to go search for him. Sax tells them, he's known for a couple of weeks, but he was checking things out. So Rose was like, he looked at me like he was Black, but he didn't know who I was. And so Sax told her he is Black. It's just the Black that you know, Liam, he's not there anymore. And you need to be really careful around him. And so she, of course, is like, he would never hurt me. And he tells her again, that is not the same Black that you knew from before. And you got to be careful. And don't try and force anything on him. So the next morning, he's getting ready to leave, Trace is. And when he opens the hotel door, Rose is there. And she asks if they can talk. And he tells her sure, and she comes in. He gets a call from Savannah, and she's begging him to come home and saying how she loves him and that no one else can fuck her the way he does. And he tells her, I'll just talk to you when I get back. So Rose asks, is that a wife or a girlfriend? And he says, yes. He was like, but it isn't a wife. So he tells her, he calls her Red. So he says, he's like, Red, I've got to go. And she was like, why are you calling me that? And he says, well, Red's the name of your charity. You had on red. Your fingernails are red. So I figured I'd call you Red. And so he didn't know her name. So He gave her a nickname, and she actually kind of liked it. Gave her kind of butterflies. So she asked him what he remembered when he woke up, and he said, "I didn't remember anything. All I saw was black." And he gives her his number and tells her she can reach out to him anytime, and she places a kiss on his cheek. So when he goes back to the clubhouse, he was at the bar, and Savannah comes up to him. She's trying to be all kissy and he tells her, "Find somewhere else to sleep tonight." And then he goes to his room, and Grover's there. And he tells him and shows him a picture of him in red at the hotel. So, of course, he had someone trailing. He's got a photo. So, basically, he threatens him and says, basically, you know what this is. This is blood in and blood out. And other people will be taken out as well if you try to leave. So, Trace is like, in his head, I wouldn't have a problem taking all of you out, because he don't care about none of these people. So then Grover leaves, Kane comes in and finally gets the truth from Kane that his name is Black and that Savannah was told to be your girlfriend, but she really does love you now. And then Black tells Kane, just tell Savannah you love her and just grow up. Like, get a pair of balls and just tell her that you love her, because he can tell Kane's into her. So now we're just going to call him Black because it's official. He's been told his name is Black, okay? So for the next week, Black plotted. So he planted different seeds of distrust amongst the club members, including like 3 of like the higher ranking members. So the punishment was either death or blood. The man chose blood. So he starts the torture. So when he gets to the last guy, the last dude spilled all the tea. He was like, "You aren't even a member of the club. Grover uses you." So before Black, they weren't a club that anyone was afraid of. Their name was like the Vicious Vipers, but there's nothing vicious about them, right? And so they needed the infamous Black to come along and to be able to basically put fear in people of their bike club. You know what I'm saying? Plus, he brings in a slew of money doing the different hits. So it worked, him putting in the different seeds of distrust, and the loyalty is just broken now. So yeah, the guy just told him, yeah, they never had any power before you. You gave them power. So he packs some stuff, leaves the clubhouse, and goes to Red's house. So Liam Jr. answers the door. He has an attitude because all he knows is that some guy's at the door. So then Red comes to the door and asks him to, come back in like 2 hours. So she texts him an hour later. He comes back. They talk a little, and she has a cry. And that puts her to sleep. And then Hayden comes home, and he says, "Hi, Mr. Black." And he asks to get a lift to wherever he was trying to go. So he remembers him. He just knows it's Mr. Black. But I'm quite sure, kids are, they can tell. He can tell probably something's different about him, but to him, it's just Mr. Black. So Black and Red, you'll hear me either say Red or Rose. Because at this point, he's still calling her Red. So they talk on the phone, and then he asks her to come over. And before she can get there, Cassie's pregnant ass shows up to Black's hotel room, and she basically was like, "You better not hurt her again." She was just going off. So then Sack shows up to get her and apologizes and lets her know, like, this is, her friend, her best friend. This is why she's reacting this way. So then Savannah shows up, and she wants to talk. So then Red, a.k.a. Rose, shows up, and of course Savannah's nasty, but Black told her to leave, slammed the door in her face. So then Rose and Black leave, and they go to his house in Lowood, and she shows him the walls in the house with the graffiti, but nothing really comes back to him. He just knows that Rose feels right. And she had finally told him her name, like when they had left the hotel, she finally had told him the name was Rose. But he's still going to call her Red for a little while. So after they leave his old house, she takes him to where they would paint graffiti on the walls by the trains. And on the way there, she asked him, where he stayed. And he said a couple of hours away in a club. She starts freaking out. And she's like, "You belong to a biker club?" And it's just funny to me, again, with that name, the Vicious Vipers, but there was nothing vicious about them. until they got him. I just found that just so funny. But anyway, I digress. So when they get out, she grabs his hand. He looks at the wall. And he does have a memory of a place, hearing her call him Liam when they were like 16. But it isn't all his memories, come rushing back. They haven't come rushing back just yet. So she looked at him and he picked her up. And because, they give each other these looks and then he's got to have her. And so they fucked hard against the truck. And when he felt like blackness was about to surround him, it's like it didn't take hold because she was there. And then they both come and then he just says tomorrow. And she says yes. So she looks a little hurt because she was thinking that because he remembered like this little something, that maybe he was fully coming back, but his face showed no emotion and she knew it wasn't there yet. So she goes back home and Jake sees her and knows she's been with Black and sees the hurt on her face and he wants to go fight him. So he asks her, what happened? She told him. He barges out and she calls Black and says, Jake's going to come over there. Please don't shoot him. Because you got to remember, he doesn't know who Jake is. And you just can't come approaching people. So Black was confused and just was like, who is Jake and why would I shoot him? So she tells him, just don't. But then Jake came back in. He had went outside and struck some and busted his hand. So she gets him some ice and the kids, they come back home with her mother. And the mother has been like really great. She helps a lot with the kids. She's been like a totally different person. So great, shout out to her. So Jake and Rose talk on the couch and he tells her that basically she needs to be careful. As this isn't the same person that you were embedded into before. And she just was basically like, well, damn it, I'm just going to have to embed myself in him again. So Hayden comes up to her while she's cooking later and he lets her know that he knows Mr. Black is alive and that he even, got a ride with him. And he tells her, I can tell he's different. And so Rose just kind of tells him, stay away from him until I give you the go ahead. He agrees, but she doesn't believe he's going to abide by it. So Jake goes to Black's hotel and punches him in the nose and tells him, you told me to protect her and I will, even from you. So Black has the shakes bad and he passes out. So when he comes to, he isn't in the hotel. He's at his old home in Lowood. And Red, aka Rose, is there. And she asks him, what he remembers. And he asks, how long was he out? Well, she tells him, you've been out for like about a week. I guess he's been going like in and out of consciousness. So she had found needle markings between his toes. And so basically she understood, what withdrawals were, which is probably why she went looking on him to see like what was he possibly on. Because she could tell whatever was going through, it was something with withdrawals. She saw between his toes, it looked there had been markings where clearly he had injecting something there, right? So Rose kept asking him about the markings, but he just looked at her crazy because he really didn't know what she was talking about. So Rose leaves the room, and then he hears shots and women screaming. So he automatically reaches for the gun case, which he knew was there, but wasn't sure how he knew it was there. He gets the sniper. So when he touches it, it feels like it's all his. And it feels like the first thing that has like ever felt that way to him. So he goes out front. Savannah's outside waving a gun around. Rose is trying to calm her down to no avail. Savannah grabs Rose, puts a gun to her head and says, if you just come with me, everything will go back to normal. But before that, she was taunting him and was like, are you having withdrawals, baby? Well, we find out this heifer been shooting him up with memory suppressors for the past 5 years. Every fucking night when he falls asleep, she was sticking him in between his toes to make sure his memory stayed suppressed. And I'm quite sure the dosage was some fucked up shit, that is absolutely insane to me. Like, that you would think, and then how do you really feel like you love the person when you're trying to suppress who the person really is? You know what I'm saying? Like that, I can't really say she loves him. She probably loves how he fucks her. But you can't love him because you don't know him. That's crazy to me. So Rose closed her eyes and she smiles because when she see the sniper, she knows he doesn't miss. Well, he first shoots Rose. It's like I forget where he shot her. I think it was somewhere in the shoulder or something. which made Savannah think that he had lost his aim. And then right when she went to put the gun back up to Rose's head, he shot Savannah right between the eyes. So he carried Rose inside, took the bullet out, stitched her up. She passes out from the pain. Later on, when she comes to, they talk, and she calls him Liam. But again, like I told you, he's just going to be Black because he got too many names. So Hayden comes over, and then she and Black talk again. And basically the doctor says the memory, it should come back, but there is a possibility that it won't due to how long he was taking it. And they don't know the dosage amount that he was taking each time. So basically, she lets him know, if you don't remember, I'll make sure you remember. Rose said, we ain't going through this. You gonna remember our life. So, also, when Jake had come in and he found out that Blake had shot Rose, he got pissed. So he pulled his gun out and he shot, but Black too fast and shot Jake in the hand. So now Jake's in pain. But all he really could say was, yeah, you the same. Like, I was like, this is just crazy. So Jake and Black have a conversation about Rose and Jake. And Jake was just like, don't hurt her. And Black looked at him and said, are you in love with her? And he's like, no. He was like, but I've been taking care of her like I promised you that I would. So Jake told him, you need to apologize to her. And, you'll get her back. You'll win her back. So Rose had already left and went home. And then Jake tells Black that he's got to go to Rose's house because he's going to use his house to fuck. Jake's like, I need some. You need to go. You're going to have to go over there. And he was like, I don't do kids, is what Black said. And he was like, but you're going to go to Rose. It's happening. So he goes to Rose's and she's pissed. And then he tells her, Jake sent me. And she was like, no, he was supposed to watch the kids. I've got to go to work. So then she tells Black, well, you're going to have to do it. And he was like, I don't do kids. But she was like, tough shit. I got to go to work. So he's there with little Liam. It's just Liam there. And then when the kid asks him, what's your name? He says Liam. And the kid says, no, that's my name. What's your name? So he tells him, my name's Black. So they have a back and forth and then eventually fall asleep on the couch. So when she comes home, Rose, with Isabel and Hayden, he wakes and Isabel looks like she's seen a ghost, but she remembered him and gave him like a big hug. Because she took to him quicker than anybody. Like, it took her a while to warm up to Jake, but Black was somebody that she instantly took to. So he looked weird, but he didn't move her. So then he walked off and he talked to Rose and said, he looked, talking about Liam, he looks like you. And she says he looks like you too. And then he said, I figured he was mine, but it didn't take long to figure out. But he's like, why didn't you tell me? And she was just kind of like, I don't know. How do you tell a person that when you don't know if they have all their memories? You're not trying to overload them. You know what I'm saying? Because there is such a thing as you can have too much information. So I kind of get why she was trying to kind of hold back, kind of maybe hoping he would get some more memories back before she laid all that on him. Because that's a lot to hear, you've got a child. That's a lot. That's not a small thing to hear. And Black also told her, he was like, I knew you wouldn't leave the child with a stranger, But then he told her, but don't do that again. And then he left. So she didn't hear from him for a week. So then one night she hears footsteps in the living room. So she gets her bat, which she has had since she was abducted from the house. And she goes in and she hears these heavy footsteps. And old girl just swings in the dark. And she hit him in the back of the head. Poor Black. And he's bleeding, laid out on the floor. So Hayden was up and saw it. These poor kids, they just done seen too much stuff, I swear. So Hayden goes back to bed. And once Black has come to, he and Rose talk. And he tells her the story of when he woke up. And he wanted to hear her story. But she was just like, it's just too painful. And so she told him to sleep on the couch. But he wasn't going to do it. And he didn't. He slept right in her bed. he told her the story of how Cain had come to see him while he was with Jake and saw the body of Savannah and snuck a few licks in, but he wound up having to take Cain out in the process because he was trying to take Black out. So it is what it is. He wakes up to Liam laying on his chest. They go to the kitchen. Everyone's in there. It does overwhelm him. He gets up, leaves, and when he opens the door, Robbie's there. Remember our officer Robbie? And he goes pale. Robbie does. And was just like, I can't believe it. So then he gives Rose a hug and he says he came to drop the kids off since, she has a presentation to do. So Black doesn't like him. And when Rose and Robbie hug, he thinks death. So he can tell that the man has a thing for her. So he leaves and goes home. And of course, even though he likes being alone, he misses her. So someone comes to the door and tells him, you can't tell her. And he says, I know. And then the guy leaves. But we don't know who that is. Later on, Rose comes to his house, and of course they have like their nice hard fuck, and they have a little talk, and it basically is her telling him that although you have the darkness, you protect those who you love. So the next morning, he tells her that he has to go back, and she pleads with him not to, but he says he has to, and then he tells her before she goes not to trust Robbie. So he goes back and starts taking them all out. Grover's men. And Grover then tells him everything, and we find out Black has all of his memories back now. So Grover tells him that Gray wasn't using him to the best of his abilities, and that he had paid Black's stepfather just to beat him. Then took out the stepfather. That got his loyalty, right? He never joined Gray's gang, right? But he was still pretty loyal to them. But that's crazy that someone paid to. That's awful. It's bad enough you took the guy's mom out, but you paid the stepfather to beat him because you were trying to make him cold, heartless. The best assassin ever. That's wild. Oh my gosh. So we also find out that Robbie is Gray's son. And Jake is his brother, but Jake doesn't even know it. So Robbie was the one that went and told Rue where Black was. Because Rue is the one that shot Black when they were at that lake. And thus the reason Black got shot. So Grover gets away because one of his men did something. I can't remember exactly because there was a lot of action scenes to read in this book. And so Grover wound up getting away, but the guy had taken a shot and it had like grazed Black's ear, and then Black wound up taking the guy out. So he comes back to Rose's house in the middle of the night, but this time she knows it's him. They talk. She knows he tells her he has his memories. And then later they have breakfast and he's just out of place. And it's because he needs to take people out. And Jakes explains to Rose, she didn't like it, but he just explained to her, listen, this is who he is. You can't try and change him. He's going to make himself miserable trying to please you because he loves you so much. So later that night, they have a date night and they go to a different spot and they have it out. And he basically wants his fill of her tonight because he feels like he can't be that 9-to-5 guy. They have this nice hard fuck on the back of the truck, and then he takes her back to the house, and she's like, when will I see you again? He doesn't answer. And then she's like, you have a son and you need to grow some fucking balls, and your son needs you. And he was like, he's been fine all this time, and I'm like, shit. So she slams the door and she goes inside and she doesn't look back. I think the reason he still feels the need to kill is because there's still people out there who haven't paid for the stuff that they have done. You know what I mean? I feel like it's a slur of unfinished business, and that's why he feels like this. I mean, maybe he does just want to take people out, but I think that's more so the thing. And I feel like you wanting him to just stop And the people that need to be dealt with, haven't been dealt with, probably ain't the brightest thing. Jake is at Black's place a few days later and tells him he's leaving. He's like going away. And so we get some revelations. Jake does love Rose, but she knows that she's never going to love him the same way that she loves Black. He never gave up the club, so he is the head dude. But he's now expanded it to the country with guns and drugs. So Black tells him, about Robbie, that's your brother, and he's the one that fed the information to both Gray, his dad, and Rue. So they go over to Rose's place, and Jake tells her, get the kids, leave. And the look she sees on Jake's face, she knows, okay, I better do it, right? So she gets the kids, she leaves. Robbie comes out. Robbie's got his gun pointed at Jake at first. Jake has already got his gun drawn. Then Robbie points it to Black. And you can't do that with Black, so Black shot his hand. And Jake's like, why did you do it? And Black said, he had a gun pointed at me. I was like, oh my gosh. He had been itching, to shoot that Robbie guy. I knew I did not like him. I freaking knew it. I knew he was trash. So we get they have to take him, because you gotta remember he's the whole cop. So they have to take him, put him in the truck. Well, we get some revelations about Robbie. So Robbie has been jealous of both Black and Jake because they were claimed by Gray, while he had to feed him all this information just to try and get in some type of good grace with his father. So when he fell for Rose, he was infuriated that she loved Black, because it was like, here again, he's stealing the love from someone that I'm supposed to have, right? These people and their feelings, I told you. So they take him, but that shows you how spiteful. That was just that still doesn't give you a right to do what you've done, because now all you've cared about is basically what you felt could make you happy, not looking at what that woman had to go through because you went and did that. The stuff they did to her, and then the trauma she had, and you saw all of this, and you were okay with that. You still a trash person. He's horrible. I mean, I know Black is a mess, but gosh, he's I just knew I couldn't stand him. That was my little mini rant. So they take him, I want to say, to the clubhouse. They tie him up, and they call Rose, and they have Rose come. Sax comes with her, and they tell Rose everything. Because at first when she walked in, she's like, why y'all got Robbie? What's going on? And when she finds out what that man did, girl took the gun herself and shot at him. But she has horrible aim. So she just kind of grazed his head, and he passed out because he slumped over, and she thought she took him out. But he just passed out, but she was ready to kill. So afterwards, she's screaming at both of them, Jake and Black. She's like, I gotta get out of here. I'm tired of y'all and all of y'all fucked up shit. And she leaves. And so then Black asks for, and this is what they did to Robbie. They put him in the walls of the club and sealed him in. The only way to get him out is to break him out. So I guess they were trying to bury him alive, and you could hear his screams. That's wild. So Black had asked Jake for a steel coffin, and of course he's gonna get it, and told him afterwards go after her. So he goes to her house. They talk, and the outcome is she's just having a hard time with him remembering her and not choosing her. And so she thinks they just need time apart. So Black meets up with Grover. Jake brings a steel coffin. He gets a call, but he doesn't answer it. Grover says, you might want to answer it. It's Rose screaming, Liam's been taken. Well, Grover has him, and he's standing in front of him. Black tells him, I know, he's standing he's standing with him right now. And she basically screams, you better get him back now. So there's another guy with knives that's like throwing them at Black, and one hits his hand, and Grover takes the child in the house. Before he left, I'm not sure what house they were in. I'm really not. I don't know if it was at a clubhouse. I'm really not sure. So before he left, he had asked, where is my daughter? That's what Grover asked him. And Black was like, you want to know where her body is? And Grover said, well, it looks like it's going to be a child for a child. So Rose, I think Sax brought her. She pulls up with him, screams at Jake, where's Liam? He points inside, and old girl just goes in and gets her kid. So he isn't hurt, and when she comes out, she's like, you got to stop. If you can't, I can't do this. You know, my children are my priority, and I can't get them caught up in this mess, and then she leaves. So then Jake tells him, you know, you're going to have to, like, get to a space where this isn't something that you need. So he gets a call from Grover, meets him, same spot where everything was taken from him was by that lake. And he tells him to show up alone. He does. Jake comes from behind, puts a gun to Grover's head. He doesn't shoot him, and Black tells him, remember what he said. And Black has decided that he's going to put him in the steel coffin. So that was Sax. I'm sorry. Sax was like, you know, remember what Rose said. But Black is like, this man has got to pay. And then, here's my thing, and I agree with that, because he's going to keep coming. You got to remember, if he doesn't have Black, he doesn't have anything. He doesn't have any power. You know, everything changes now. So why wouldn't he stop from coming after the person that he's going to feel like took everything from him? He's going to keep coming. That's not safe. You got to take him out, you know? So he puts Grover in the steel coffin, and he has spread Savannah's ashes in there and tells him, now you can be with your daughter. Those are her ashes, and shuts the damn coffin. I said, fuck, that's cold. Oh my gosh. So they, Sax and him close it, and they push it in the water. And then he asks Sax for a job, and Sax is like, okay. And he's like, I'm going to try and go and fight and be with Rose. So Rose has been calling Jake for 2 weeks, no answer. Casey tells her, you know what, you need to go out and you need to have some fun. And at first she doesn't want to go, but Casey's like, no, your work friends are always asking you to go out. You need to go out, have a good time. So she goes, gets all dressed up, sexy and red. And guess who comes? Black shows up. They dance, get all hot and heavy, leave, go outside the club. Fuck outside the club. And then she said, you chose something else over us, and this doesn't change anything, you know, and she left. So Black talks with Jake via phone. He still doesn't know where he is, and he tells him what happened. And Jake kind of tells him, you need to get to know your kids first. And so now he's going to try and do that. So he goes to the house, sees the kids, goes to Liam's room. And the kid, you know, he's just like, play with me, you know. So he does. And he asks Liam, do you know who I am? And the little boy just points to the picture by the bed. And then he wanted Black to sit next to him. And he just, for dinner, and he just, the little boy, at being like almost 5 years old, but he was just asking some straight up questions. He was like, do you love my mom? Why do you love her? Do you know you make her cry? Well, don't let it happen again. Are you going to be my new dad? Great. You look bigger and scarier than the other dad, so it'll be cool. I said, wow. So he goes to work for Sax. He does detail for a pop star when they get to the hotel. The pop star, she goes in her room and she comes out butt naked and basically was like, she needs to fuck. And he leaves and tells the other bodyguard, you can have her. So his dick wouldn't even get hard for the woman. So he tells Sax, don't send me to that woman ever again. Rose gets a package that says, don't open near the kids. It's a gift from Black. It's his first gun. It's his most prized possession. He tells her to bring it to the place where it all began. She was super pissed to be there again. But after that, they had like a super long conversation. And, you know, he told her, you can keep it or you can destroy it. You know, whatever you want to do with it. And she decides, you know, they're going to try and make that work. So Black gets a call from Sax, and Then a little while later, he calls Rose and tells her to meet him at Sax's job. And when she get there, she sees a video of Jake. He's tied up, and Robbie's pulling off his fingernails with pliers, and Jake's gag. So Black tells her, I have to go to the darkness. And seeing that, when she sees that video, she just was like, then go to the darkness. Like, you got to take him out. And she was mad at herself because she was like, I should have took him out when I had the chance, or let you guys take him out. She was pissed because she does love Jake. I think she loves him more so like a maybe a brotherly type of thing, but it's still a strong love, you know what I'm saying? And so then it goes to Jake, and he knows that Black is coming, and Robbie thinks that he's going to be able to take out Jake and Black, and doesn't realize Jake knows his friend. Like, he knows what's going to happen. And so he sees Black coming, and while Robbie's trying to load his weapon, Black's already got 2 guns out. And then that's the end. I was like, oh gosh, the suspense. So the final book in this series is called White, and we are going to dive into that next week. What did you guys think of Red? Please drop down in the comment section below in the discussion board and let me know what you guys think. I have some beautiful notebook journals for sale. If you're interested, that link is going to be listed down below in the description section as well. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.